You're watching Narrify.
It had only been 3 months since Tyla and I married in Santa Barbara. The wedding was small but beautiful, sunlight spilling across the cliffs, ocean waves lapping in the background, friends and family cheering as we exchanged vows. I thought I had found the person I could trust completely. After the wedding, we moved into a modest duplex inland. I had saved for years to afford it, proud of the security I could finally offer a wife I loved. Tyla seemed thrilled, organizing our home with boundless energy, unpacking boxes, arranging furniture, and decorating with care. I thought we were starting a life together. Then came the idea for a vacation to Lake Tahoe. Tyla found a cabin online with a view of the lake, a fireplace, and a balcony. I imagined peaceful mornings, coffee in hand, and gentle walks along the shore. I didn't suspect that the vacation would become the first time she truly betrayed me. The drive to Tahoe was long but pleasant. I played a playlist of old songs while Tyla sang along, teasing me when I hummed off-key. Her laughter was light, almost careless, and for a moment, I thought how lucky I was. We arrived at the cabin in late afternoon, the sun reflecting off the lake. Tyla immediately began unpacking, insisting I rest with a cup of hot chocolate. "You deserve it," she said. I smiled, thinking she was thoughtful. That night, after a simple dinner, she suggested a walk along the lake. I followed, noticing how the cold wind caught her hair. She walked slightly ahead, almost ignoring me. Her distance puzzled me, but I thought nothing of it, attributing it to excitement or independence. The next morning, Tyla was gone when I woke. A note said she had gone to explore a nearby trail. I trusted her and stayed behind, sipping coffee, but unease gnawed at me. I decided to follow the trail. At an overlook, I saw her. She wasn't alone. She was laughing with a man I didn't know, leaning close, her expression intimate in a way that shocked me. I froze, stomach sinking, unable to believe what I was seeing. The betrayal hit instantly, unignorable. I didn't confront her. I walked back silently, pretending nothing had happened. That night, I asked casually about the trail. Her answers were smooth, practiced, dismissive. My trust had been shattered, yet she acted as if nothing were wrong. Returning home, things escalated quickly. Tyla insisted on claiming 50% of our property, arguing that her contributions during our brief marriage, helping with bills, unpacking, and maintaining the home, entitled her to equity. I was stunned. I had built everything before marriage. I refused. Tyla filed for legal separation, demanding half of the duplex. The lawsuits began, attorneys, depositions, and evidence gathering. Every interaction reminded me of the Tahoe betrayal. Every glance toward Tyla felt like a threat, a reminder of how quickly someone could destroy trust. Tyla's narrative was persuasive. She portrayed herself as wronged, helpful, and patient, emphasizing her contributions in a marriage that barely existed. Friends and some family sided with her, citing her distress and painting me as controlling. I realized quickly that charm and manipulation could extend beyond private life, seeping into legal battles with dangerous efficiency. Weeks turned into months. I spent sleepless nights going through emails, bank statements, and records. Every vacation photo, every message I had overlooked, became a clue. The man at Tahoe wasn't important now. It was Tyla's audacity to betray and then demand half of what was mine. The emotional weight was overwhelming. I tried to maintain normalcy at work, but the mental toll was severe. Nights blurred into restless hours in our half-empty duplex, every sound reminding me of the betrayal. Each interaction with Tyla, each court date, each email from her lawyers chipped away at my peace. I learned that survival required vigilance, patience, and documentation. Months into the legal battle, the court examined our contributions. Evidence, sworn statements, and testimony painted the picture of a marriage too brief for property claims. Tyla's strategy relied on charm and selective memory. I responded with precise records of ownership and financial contributions prior to marriage. Courtrooms became battlegrounds. I realized the hardest part wasn't losing property, it was the psychological warfare. Tyla had dismantled my trust, my peace, and my confidence. I felt isolated, unsure whom to trust. Friends drifted away, some too cautious to pick sides. Every document, every statement became crucial. Every small mistake could be exploited. By late fall, after months of hearings and mediation, the judge ruled largely in my favor. Tyla received a small settlement, acknowledging minor contributions, but the majority of the property remained mine. It was a legal victory, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. My home, once a sanctuary, had been a battlefield. I moved forward carefully. I maintained boundaries, rebuilt routines, and focused on work to anchor my life. Nights remained quiet and reflective. I learned that trust could be weaponized, and survival required clarity, patience, and meticulous attention to detail. After the first court sessions, I quickly realized that dealing with Tyla was like trying to navigate a storm with no compass. Every conversation, every negotiation had to be precise. A single misplaced word or emotional reaction could be twisted, turned against me, and used in her favor. Her lawyers were cunning, and she had a knack for making herself appear wronged and fragile, even though I knew the truth. Tyla began using every small detail of our life against me. She filed claims for shared expenses that I had already paid, submitted text messages out of context, and even tried to portray my work schedule as neglectful. "He's never home. He doesn't care about me," her statements read, her words designed to paint me as emotionally abusive. Courtrooms became a theater, and she was the lead actress, playing a script she had written herself. At home, life felt impossible. I spent my mornings gathering paperwork, bank statements, receipts, emails, and photos that documented months of planning and ownership. My evenings were consumed by research into property law, marriage statutes, and mediation strategies. Sleep came in fragments, often on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone you loved could betray you so completely in such a short time. Tyla, meanwhile, maintained a calm, almost casual demeanor outside court. She continued her daily routines as if nothing had happened. She shopped, exercised, visited friends, and posted curated snapshots on social media that portrayed a life of elegance and poise. Each post was a reminder that she was capable of masking betrayal with charm. Friends and family occasionally questioned me, subtly implying I might be exaggerating. It was infuriating. I knew the truth, but truth alone did not convince others. Evidence was required. One afternoon, her lawyer requested a deposition at a local law office. I remember sitting across the table from Tyla, watching her smooth gestures, the faint smile playing on her lips. She looked at me like she had me figured out, as if she knew my anger, my frustration, and my desperation. I forced myself to remain calm, answering questions carefully, neutralizing every attempt she made to draw me into emotional responses. The deposition lasted hours. Each question she or her attorney posed was designed to make me appear unreasonable or negligent. "Did you consider Tyla's emotional needs during this short marriage?" they asked. "Did you ever attempt to compromise on shared expenses?" Their words stung not because they were accurate, but because they implied I had failed when I had done everything in good faith. I realized then that battling Tyla was not about emotion. It was about precision, preparation, and patience. In the days following, I continued collecting evidence. I discovered that Tyla had opened multiple accounts in her name, transferring minor sums from our joint account, claiming them as household expenses. Small amounts, hardly noticeable individually, but together, they revealed a pattern of calculated planning. Confirmed what I had suspected. The betrayal at Tahoe was not impulsive. It was part of a deliberate strategy. Court hearings dragged on. I hired a private investigator to confirm suspicions I had about her activities during the vacation. The investigator provided detailed reports. Locations she visited, people she met, and patterns that indicated premeditation. Each page I received tightened my resolve. I wasn't going to allow a person who had betrayed me to also rewrite reality to her advantage. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, I sat in the duplex living room, surrounded by stacks of paper, folders, and legal documents. The weight of betrayal was crushing. I realized that property wasn't the most painful loss. It was the erosion of trust, the realization that someone I loved could be so calculating, and the loneliness of facing manipulation in a public setting. Tyla continued to behave as if everything were normal. She would casually mention plans to friends, ask mutual acquaintances for support, or leave passive-aggressive messages implying that I had failed to communicate properly. Each action was a reminder that she was not just seeking property. She was attempting to control the narrative of our marriage and her betrayal. At one point, during mediation, her lawyer suggested a temporary agreement. Tyla deserves at least 50% of the equity in the duplex, they said. I was taken aback, but I remained composed. The equity she claims, I countered, is not a result of her contribution but of prior ownership and earnings. Evidence will prove that. The mediator frowned at the tension in the room but allowed the legal arguments to continue. The battle was as psychological as it was legal. Tyla had mastered manipulation, but I had begun mastering observation. Every slip she made, an overenthusiastic claim, a fabricated story that didn't match reality, a text that revealed inconsistency, was documented, filed, and ready to present. I began to understand the subtle power of evidence. Not charm, not eloquence, not tears, but facts. Facts could not be denied. Late nights became my routine. I would cross-reference bank statements with emails, verify dates, and ensure that every claim she made had an indisputable record. The realization was sobering. Betrayal had a legal cost far beyond emotions. It required vigilance, calculation, and stamina. Then came the turning point. During a court hearing, her attorney presented selective bank transactions suggesting joint spending. I calmly countered with a full audit, showing clearly which funds were mine, which were hers, and where unauthorized transfers had occurred. The judge examined the evidence, nodding slowly, and Tyla's confident composure faltered. It was the first visible crack in her facade. Following that, I received a report from the private investigator confirming meetings she had with a third party during the vacation. It wasn't just about infidelity, it was about collusion, deceit, and planning. Presenting this evidence in court was delicate. It had to be factual, non-speculative, and relevant to property claims. But I had everything documented. Dates, times, photographs, and witness accounts. Tyla's behavior shifted. She grew defensive, less polished, more erratic. She began canceling meetings, changing stories, and avoiding direct questions. Watched, silently noting each inconsistency. For the first time since Tahoe, I realized that the tables were turning. Her confidence had relied on my inaction. My calm, prepared response was dismantling her strategy piece by piece. By the end of the second month in court, it was clear. Tyla's plan to claim half of the property was unraveling. Her lawyers became cautious, offering smaller settlements and negotiating behind the scenes. The psychological impact on Tyla was palpable. She no longer had control over the narrative, and that frustration translated into visible cracks in her demeanor during hearings. Throughout this, I remained focused not on revenge, but on survival and justice. I had lost trust, but I had not lost clarity. I continued documenting everything, maintaining meticulous records, and ensuring that my actions remained above reproach. Slowly, the legal system responded to evidence rather than charm. By the third month, the courtroom had become familiar, a grim stage, where Tyla's charm no longer held sway. Her carefully crafted smile and calm tone began to feel hollow, and I noticed the subtle shifts in the way her lawyers spoke to me. More caution, less bravado. I had meticulously documented everything. Bank transfers, messages, witness accounts, and even the private investigator's report detailing her vacation rendezvous. The evidence was undeniable. During one hearing, the judge leaned forward, eyes scanning the organized files I had submitted. "Mr. Harper," she said, "the court has reviewed these documents. It is clear that some transactions were not jointly agreed upon, and that there is significant evidence of deliberate misrepresentation by your spouse." I felt a strange mixture of relief and fatigue. Relief that the truth was finally recognized. fatigue from the months of stress, sleepless nights, and the emotional toll of betrayal. Tyla shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her polished demeanor cracking ever so slightly. She had relied on manipulation, charm, and my initial hesitation to gain advantage. But now she was cornered by facts, undeniable records that could not be spun into lies. Her eyes flicked toward me, briefly, perhaps seeking the familiar control she had so easily held before. I met her gaze, calm and steady, showing nothing. The next phase involved property negotiation. Her initial demand for 50% equity had been audacious, but after reviewing the evidence, the court leaned toward a fair division based on actual contribution. Tyla's lawyers suggested mediation to avoid protracted litigation, and I agreed, but this time on my terms. I insisted on full transparency. Every transaction, every claim, every discussion about property would be documented. No lies, no embellishments. Mediation sessions were tense. Tyla attempted subtle manipulations implying emotional distress, financial need, and past neglect. I countered with evidence. Receipts showing her personal spending, emails confirming her vacation plans, and the investigator's report, demonstrating premeditation in her actions. Each time she tried to frame herself as a victim, I calmly presented a documented record showing the truth. Slowly, the mediator began steering the discussion toward a realistic settlement. The settlement negotiations were grueling, stretching over several weeks. Tyla attempted to challenge minor details, dispute dates, and question witness accounts. Each objection was met with patience, preparation, and facts. Her initial confidence eroded with every presentation, every corroborated report, and every irrefutable piece of evidence I produced. By the end of the negotiations, it became clear. The 50% claim she had demanded was no longer realistic. Finally, the agreement was signed. The court ruled in my favor regarding the majority of the property, assigning Tyla a proportion that reflected her actual contribution during our brief marriage, not the inflated claim she had attempted to assert. The relief I felt was profound. It wasn't just about property, it was about justice, about reclaiming agency, and about sending a clear message that manipulation and deceit have limits. The aftermath was emotionally complex. Tyla moved out of the shared residence, packing her belongings while maintaining a facade of civility. I watched from a distance, detached but resolute. There was no triumphant celebration, no gloating. The satisfaction was quiet, internal, a recognition that truth and preparation had prevailed over betrayal and cunning. In the weeks following, I focused on rebuilding my life. The duplex, now firmly under my control, became a space of restoration. I repainted walls, repaired the small damages that had been neglected, and slowly reestablished routines. Work became my anchor, once again, offering structure and purpose. Friendships, strained but not broken, resumed naturally as people saw that I had endured and navigated the turmoil with integrity. Psychologically, the experience left scars. Trust became a delicate commodity. I approached relationships with caution, skepticism, and careful observation. But the betrayal had also taught resilience. I learned to read subtle cues, recognize manipulative patterns, and maintain vigilance without letting suspicion dominate my life. The knowledge gained from surviving Tyla's schemes became both armor and compass, guiding me through personal and professional interactions. One night, I sat alone in the living room, the faint glow of city lights filtering through the curtains. The weight of the past 3 months pressed on me, but unlike before, it no longer paralyzed me. I reflected on the months of legal battles, sleepless nights, and emotional exhaustion. The betrayal was real, the pain undeniable, but I had endured, adapted, and emerged with a clearer sense of my own strength and boundaries. I also realized that my brief marriage had been a harsh but instructive chapter. It taught me that love can be weaponized, trust can be exploited, and charm can mask calculation. But it also reinforced that preparation, patience, and adherence to facts can counter manipulation. Surviving the ordeal was a lesson in endurance and strategy, proving that even the most elaborate betrayals can be met with measured resolve. In the end, Tyla faded from my daily life. Her attempts to control, manipulate, and gain unfair advantage were neutralized. The legal victory, while significant, was secondary to the personal reclamation of agency and narrative. I had survived betrayal, asserted truth, and reclaimed control over my circumstances. Life continued, not as I had imagined it at the time of our wedding, but as I actively shaped it with clarity, strength, and cautious optimism. The experience left me changed, no longer naive, no longer willing to take trust for granted, but also no longer paralyzed by fear of betrayal. I rebuilt, piece by piece, establishing routines, boundaries, and a stronger sense of self. Nights of reflection became moments of strategy, understanding, and preparation, rather than despair. By the time the following spring arrived, the duplex felt like a home again, a space of stability and control. Work, friends, and personal projects filled the hours once consumed by uncertainty and emotional turmoil. I was cautious, yes, but I was also free in ways I had not anticipated. Free from deception, free from manipulation, and free to rebuild life on my own terms. Tyla's shadow remained, faint but real, a reminder of the fragility of trust and the necessity of vigilance. But in that shadow, I also recognized resilience. The months of betrayal, legal wrangling, and emotional strain had forged a stronger, more aware, and more strategic self. In surviving, I had reclaimed not just property or justice, but dignity, clarity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that truth, patience, and preparation had prevailed.